Hello, viewers, and welcome again to another session. Today, we are going to look at another application software known as databases. Before we go into databases, let's have a look at what we had last time. Last time, we looked at spreadsheets. We looked at different examples of spreadsheets that exist. We looked at different application areas of spreadsheets. We looked at anatomy of spreadsheet window, and we had an exciting Excel activity. So for our lesson today, we're going to look at databases. We define what a database in the DBMS is. We'll identify different components of a database. We'll look at the importance of databases and we'll create and use a database using Microsoft Access. So, what is a database? A database is an organized collection of related data that is stored electronically and easy to access, manage, and update. If you want to understand this better, imagine you go into a particular office, let's say your previous primary school or a hospital, or you have a court case. So you go into this particular office and you ask for your file. And since they do not embrace technology, you have to look at your file manually. So the person in charge goes into a particular room, it's full of shelves and has so many files. So he asks you your name and alphabetically it goes directly to the letter that your name belongs to. He searches, peruses through all those files, and after like 30 minutes, he tells you, sorry, I can't trace your file. How does that sound? After wasting all your time and maybe you've traveled several kilometers to this particular office to wait there for almost half a day only to be told that your file is not here. Unlike if it was a database involved, you could have just done it from you wherever you are. Log on to their website, search for this particular information, retrieve it, and get what you're looking for at the comfort of your chair. Well, can you see the difference? So initially, before databases came, people used to embrace traditional ways of maintaining files, and it was very hard to update, to retrieve, and access particular information that you're looking for. In relation to databases, there are normally two keywords that we can't go without defining. That's data and information. What's the difference? Data, these are raw facts. For example, you have 25 John. Information is processed data with meaning. We can see John is aged 25, or John is position 25, or John has 25 mangoes. You see? Now that makes sense. Another new word that you need to define is a DBMS. A DBMS is a software that is used to manage databases. Examples, we have Microsoft Access, that's the one you're going to use. We have MySQL, we have Oracle, we have MongoDB, and we have PostgreSQL. If you're so much interested in databases, you'll find yourself going into deep details in any of these databases. But for now, our focus will be Microsoft Access because it's simpler and it introduces beginners into the database world. So, why a database importance? And why is a database? Number one, can store large amounts of data. Imagine Safaricom with all the clients that it has. How is it able to store all that information? And if you want a particular data, it can just retrieve it within microseconds. That's the power of databases. Number two, it improves data accuracy. The exact information that you want is what you're going to get. And three, it enhances security. you'll find that there's a particular information that is not supposed to be in the eyes of public. For example, your M-Pesa balance or your bank details, your transactions. If it happens to fall in the hands of an authorized person, then it will make you be in a position that you're not secure. And the next advantage or importance is that it allows fast data retrieval or even update. If you want to update a particular data, it's just a matter of seconds. So, what makes up a database? A database, the main component is a table, and a table is used to store data. Inside the table, we have fields and records. Fields is also known as a column, and records is also known as rows. And in each and every table, there is that unique identifier known as a primary key. If you want to understand a primary key better, look at it in this scenario. There's a particular information that is only attached to you. As a Kenyan, that can be your ID number. There's no way you can get two or more people sharing an ID number. Or else, if you're a Kenyan taxpayer, your PIN number. Or if you're a student, your admission number, your registration number. That particular number that uniquely identifies you. And if it's a school, there's a school code, particularly for that school. We can have so many schools by the same name. You can have so many St. Joseph's. You can have so many St. Thomas Aquina. You can have so many institute. But the code that only belongs to that school, now that is what is known as a primary key. Now let us look at one of the databases that you're going to use, Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access is a database application built by Microsoft that is used to manage, create and manage databases. It uses tables, queries, forms, and reports. Okay, these objects you're going to look into them one by one. Not only looking into them, but you're going to create them. These are a table. Its main function is to store data. Once you've stored data in a table, the next thing is to query. Query is all about retrieving data from that particular table. And that one is queries. When you want to enter data into that particular table, you can always use a form. And finally, if you want now a printed copy or an output, you always use reports. So let's now have a tour at Microsoft Access. Just like we've done with other application softwares, how does Microsoft Access look like? Here is the look. Unlike other application softwares, the ones that we've looked at, that is Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, Access is quite different. When you open it, there's a blank database and there are templates. So the first thing you need to do is you create the database. Then from there, you can create tables and other components. And for our case today, we are going to have a blank database because we are now just taking the tours. You give it a name, create it, and it will take you now to the next step. Once you've created a database, the next step you're supposed to do is to create a table. And when you create a table, you have to define what kind of columns, not actually kind. You give the column a name and you have to specify the kind of data that is going to be stored there. Somebody might ask, what kind of data? We have different types of data. We have text, we have numbers, we have dates, we have currency, and all that. So this is the next step. Once you've created the database, this is where it takes you. From here now, we need to create a table. But before we create a table, let's have a look at Access window. You see, it's quite different from the previous windows we've looked at. For this one, these are entirely new. That is home. It's just a few features similar to what you've had before, but quite a lot is different. If we look at another tab, now this is where you want to create a form, you want to create a table, you want to create a report, you want to create a query. This is where you go. And if you look at another tab, here we go. That's what you have. It's quite different, right? Yeah. So now that you've toured Microsoft Access window, to understand it better, we need an activity. We need a practical activity. So for now, that's what you have. But let's look at this particular question. Pumwani Maternity Hospital in Nairobi has recently computerized the information system. Create the following tables and perform the tasks that follow. Note: set appropriate primary key for each table based on the unique data field. Set appropriate data type for each field. For example, age, weight as a number, basic pay and allowances as currency. So the following are the tables we need to create. We have medical staff table, we have support staff tables, and we have babies delivered in August 2013. Here we go. So we start. Our database is going to be called Pumwani, and here we create our first table. We go to the design view. Our table is medical staff. Here we go. And now we have to create the columns. The first column is employee number, and the employee number is going to be our primary key. Then we have employee name. The data type is text. Then you have age. Age is a number, definitely. Then you have basic pay. Basic pay is all about money, that's currency. Then you have allowances. Allowances is still under money. There we go. Then we have position. Now that we have clearly defined our columns, the next part of it, we need to insert data into it. So, okay, there we have position is text. So now we go to the datasheet view and we enter our raw data. Sorry, my Access is misbehaving a bit, so we need to save it. And there we go. Our table is already designed, so the only thing now is to enter data. Remember, our primary key is employee number and it has to be unique. You can't have two employees with the same number. So for information for Daniel, here we go. Is a male, age 57, basic pay, allowances and position. There we go. On to the next stuff. We have Tomatoli, enter the employee number, the name, gender, age, basic pay, allowance, and position. That's allowance, and position is a general practitioner. On to the next, we have Agnes Ndambuki. Here we have, that's the name, that's the gender, is 45, that's the age, then that's the basic pay, allowances, and position. On to the next stuff. That's just a bit. And the next staff, we have Demaris Karanja. Here we go. Then the name, gender, just a bit, age, gender, age, basic pay, allowances, and she's a clinical nurse. On to the next, we have James Jeramba, gender, age, basic pay, allowances, position. On to the next, we have, you'll realize that you have different entries for James Jeramba, but the good thing is that as long as the employee number is different, then the information is right. If we could be having the same employee number, then it could have brought issues because we can't have different employees with the same employee number. But in this case, James Jeramba has different employee number, and the ages are also different, and all of them are gainers. Somebody might think this is an error, but you never know. Let's deal with the data that we've been given. And once you're done, save it. Then we create our second table, support staff table. Our first column is employee number. Still, this one is going to be our primary key. And the data type is text. The second one, employee number. You might realize it has the same details with the medical staff table, but only a slight difference, that is, sorry. This one has one extra field known as permanent. But you realize the employee number codes are different. So what you're doing now is you're designing the table, and you have to specify the fields, the number of columns, and the type of data that is going to be held. You realize for this particular one, we have an extra data type that you didn't use in the previous table, and it's known as yes, no. So now let's enter the data. We have to save it first. Now we have to put our table. Here we go. The employee number for the first one. And just like I said, in each and every table, primary key is always different. We can't have two entries with the same primary key. Or even another rule is that a primary key can never be empty, blank. That is null. So that is the information for Agneta Musimbi is a cleaner. It is not permanent. Is not on permanent. On to the next one, we have Kenoko. Is a male aged 53. That's his salary. Allowances. I said salary, but here he is in basic pay. And he's not on permanent. On to the next stuff, we have Jason Yoroge. Female, age. One thing which you have to realize with what you're doing now is data entry. And if you're doing online work, this is the most basic job that you can do. And it's always, it doesn't require any previous knowledge as long as you know how to be very keen and sensitive on what you're entering so that the data is not wrong or you miss the data. So here we go. Next, we're almost through with the support staff table, just a few more to enter. Here we go. Basic pay, allowance, position, then is permanent, yes. On to the next, we have that's employee number, we have the employee name, that's employee number. We go to the name, gender. For now, we're only dealing with the two, unless you have gender sensitive issues here, whereby you're not strictly forced into two of them only. Unless specified, we are going to deal with two for now. Let activists not attack us. Here we go. We're almost done with this. On to the next, gender, basic pay, allowance, position, whether permanent or not permanent. Here we go. On to the next is employee name, gender, age, basic pay, allowances, position, permanent, not permanent. Here we go. We're done with the second table now. On to our final table, that is babies born in August 2013. Just like what you've done with the other tables, we do the same to this one. Here we go. Go to the design view. We have to give it a name. Babies delivered in August 2013. Okay. Then you have to create. Now we are creating the columns. And just like I said, each and every table must have a primary key. For our case, for the babies table, it's the admission number. And the data type is automatically text since our data has both letters and numbers. The mother's name, then you have baby's gender, baby's name, baby's gender, baby's name, mother's name, all these are text. All these are text. Weight on delivery, that's kg, that's a number. We will realize that when we enter numbers are also different. We'll have to specify whether it's a whole number or it can also accommodate decimal point numbers, of which in this case is known as double. So we have bill and we have a guardian. Bill and guardian, both of them take the form of text. We're done. Let's now enter data into our table. Baby number 1 for Beatrice Kamene. The baby gender is female. Kamene has not yet decided the name of her baby, so we'll just put it none. Weight on delivery, that's 3 kgs for now. Let's adjust the columns so that you can see the figures clearly. 3.2, bill cleaner, then guardian. Then we have Alice Nyokabi, baby Alice Nyokabi next. The baby is a male. The baby's name is Paul. At least Alice has decided the name of a baby. Then we have a bill is a cleaner. Baby's weight, bill cleaner. One thing we'll realize that our table is not accepting the decimal point. Once we put the decimal point, it's truncating. So we have to edit or change the type of data that is being held, is going to be held in this particular column. So now we go back there and find number. Now we're going to use a double for that matter. A double accepts the decimal part of it. You've realized when I entered the name for baby Beatrice and the name for Alicia, it has omitted the decimal part of it. And if you can check on this particular area, it's still loading and you have to give it some time. Yeah, it's warning us. We have to be patient a bit for the data type to be changed. Yeah, when you're dealing with data, it has to be very sensitive. You have to specify what type of data. So if you're dealing with text, later on we'll have to specify, is it a long text or a short text? If you're dealing with the number, what kind of number are we dealing with? Is it a whole number, an integer, or a decimal point number? It has taken us to the pivot view of it, but we don't need the pivot view of it now because we're still feeding our table with data, so we have to go back to the data sheet view. And let's try and see if our data is going to accept the decimal part of it. For baby Beatrice, we had 3.2, and for Alice Nyokabi, we had 2.5. Yeah, it is accepted now. We can go on. Baby Gladys Atieno, here we go. It's now accepting the decimal point of part of it, messenger, and the guardian is Patrick. One more thing about a primary key is that a primary key cannot be null. Null means you leave it blank, not zero. Zero is a number. But null means you leave it blank and there's nothing. When you try to enter data, you'll find access warning you this is a primary key and it can't be null. So we are going to look at it if we try and leave it blank and see if it's going to give us a warning. So onto Agnes Mumbi's baby. We're almost done. Yeah, now look at this one here. You see the warning? Now that's the warning I've been talking about because I started typing on a primary key and then I left it blank. So Access read it as if it was null. So I can't proceed until I make the correction. Okay, here we go. Female. On to the next. Not decided the name of the baby. So here we are. Sorry for that. We're almost done. The guardian. So here we see we are done with all our tables. And that's the activity for today. We've created the database and we've populated it with data. So what have we done today? We've defined the database and the DBMS to identify the components, and we've looked at the importance of databases, and we've created our first database in Access with 3 tables. Congratulations. On to our next session, we're still going to tackle databases, but you're going to look at different objects. You're going to look at queries, forms, and reports. Stay locked. Thank you and welcome again. Let's meet in the next session. Kwaheri.